Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Now, I want to start this conversation out by first telling everybody to resist the urge to run a victory lap on a quarterback who plays for the team that you love. I have been telling people to not do that about Dillon Gabriel. I will have the same exact energy for Shedeur Sanders. There's going to be a lot of people who want to do a victory lap because Shedeur didn't look good, and they've been telling people on the internet that Shedeur wasn't going to look good and that this was going to happen. Resist that urge, right? If you've been complaining that people who have been pro Shedeur have been annoying because they've been announcing him the starter and crowning him early, despite not seeing anything, well, you got to have the same energy in return and not just say he's terrible just because he had that one bad outing. Now, it was a bad outing. I think we all got to be honest about this. Shedeur was bad in this game, and he was significantly worse than Dillon Gabriel was in this game. That's going to matter because if Dillon Gabriel clears concussion protocol, there's nothing that happened in that second half that's going to put Shedeur in over Dillon Gabriel. We could talk about better protection, all this stuff that could be better, but the reality is that two quarterbacks played on this offense. One was better than the other one in this game. So that's one thing, right? Here's the main thing I want to have a conversation about. When I say Dillon Gabriel is better, I'm going to read off Dillon Gabriel's stat line. And I'm going to make a point here, right? I'm not saying that these stats are good. I'm actually making a different point here than you think. So hear me out. Dillon Gabriel was 7 of 10 today, 68 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, took one sack for -7 yards, and had an 88 rating. And I think he got field goals out of several situations where he should have got touchdowns. In no way was Dillon Gabriel good. Shedeur Sanders stepped in the second half, was 4 of 16, 47 yards passing, 2.9 yards per attempt, 1 interception, 2 sacks, and a 13.5 rating. So yes, Dillon Gabriel was better than Shedeur. But overall, the Browns quarterbacks went 11 for 26 for 81 yards and an interception with a 39 rating. None of this shit is anything to be proud of, okay? None of this is anything to be proud of. And that brings me to my bigger point here. The Browns have problems, and I've been saying this for weeks. Nobody's wanted to listen because we've been falling into the same cycle, right? Of, oh, we benched this quarterback, we put this new quarterback in that's going to fix the problems. The Browns have problems that are bigger than what they can solve in the regular season right now on offense. The Browns' issues are structural on offense. And that means it's going to affect any quarterback that gets out there. We don't have enough bodies at wide receiver to run a convincing 5-wide package. We can't spread the ball out. We're forced into all of these 12 looks because we can't not have Harold Fainin and David Njoku on the field at the same time. The Browns have issues that they're going to have to solve in the offseason. They're probably going to have to go in a completely new direction offensively, whether that means firing Kevin Stefanski or completely overhauling his staff. I think at the point to where you should overhaul his staff is the point to where you should fire him, but maybe they disagree. A huge change needs to happen offensively. I think you need to also sign and draft offensive linemen with your other picks, sign and draft wide receivers, and you also probably should just reset the book at quarterback and start new next year by going after what looks like the Browns are going to be able to pick Mendoza, right? They're going to be able to have their first cut at whatever quarterback they want. If we look at the mock draftable right now, right? Let's look at not the mock draftable, the tankathon, my bad. Let's look at the tankathon right now. The Browns are 2-8. They own the third pick in the draft right now. If they have, when the Giants and the Browns, when the Giants get their bye week, the Browns will jump the Giants and be the number 2 pick. So the Browns are essentially the number 2 pick of the draft right now. Only team ahead of them are the Tennessee Titans. And if the Browns want to swap with the Titans to shore up that they get the number 1 overall pick, it's not going to be that expensive to shore that up. So they're going to be able to pick the quarterback that they want coming out of college. I think there's 2 quarterbacks that could be good coming out of college, Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. And I think they should go in that direction. But understand here, the problems they have on offense right now are just bigger than you can solve before having a full offseason. They need wide receivers. They need offensive linemen. They need better talent at the quarterback position, and they need better talent at the coaching positions. Expecting Dylan Gabriel to come in there and fix that was foolish. Expecting Shedeur Sander'S to come in there and fix that was also foolish. We've done this cycle time and time again this season, last season, since 2024. When it was Deshaun Watson out there, I will admit it. I was one of the people blaming everything on Deshaun Watson. It can't be Kevin. It can't be the offense. It's Deshaun. He's not running it right. And then you bench Deshaun, you put Jameis Winston out there. It gets a little bit better, but then it starts to look like the same old stuff. And then you put DTR out there. DTR looks terrible, but we're just saying to ourselves, DTR is terrible. We go into 2025. Joe Flacco's the starter. Everybody agrees that that's probably the direction they should go to at the camp. Joe Flacco gets out there. He looks rough. At the time it was time to bench Joe Flacco, I remember the comment sections. I remember because I was one of the few people who did not want to bench Joe Flacco till we got to week 6. Everybody else wanted to do it right now. They wanted to do it in week 3. And I was saying, hey, look, I think the problems are bigger than Joe Flacco. I don't think he's as bad as the tape's making it look. I think that the problems are just there. But everybody was convinced that Dylan was going to make it better because he's younger, more athletic. People were saying that Joe Flacco was so old he couldn't run quarterback sneak and play action anymore. Okay, cool. We put all the heat on Joe Flacco and then said Dylan was going to fix it because he's a better quarterback. Dylan comes in there, and to Dylan's credit, he's been slightly better than Joe Flacco. It hasn't made a difference. The offense still stinks. And because the offense still stinks, we're talking about putting in Shedeur. It's got to look better with Shedeur. Shedeur can't be worse. You put in Shedeur against Baltimore, and it was not an improvement. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. We keep putting all the focus for why the offense isn't working on 1 or 2 individuals. Oh, it's Kevin and the quarterback. If you fire Kevin and you get a new quarterback, but you don't address offensive line and wide receiver, you're going to have issues on offense again. Maybe Fernando Mendoza or whoever you draft, number 1 or 2 overall, is good enough to where those problems aren't as big, but you'll still have problems. Hell, I think right now there are like 7 quarterbacks in the league right now that can fix the problems the Browns have on offense because they're that good. Everybody else would be struggling, would look worse than they are. And I think Dylan Gabriel, throughout his time here, has been made to look worse than he is. I think Joe Flacco, when he was out there, has been made to look worse than he is. And Shedeur is out there, and he looks worse than he is. So before we take a massive dump over any individual quarterback that played in today's game, let's keep that in mind. That maybe what we're seeing of them isn't the full reflection of what they'll be. But what we have seen of them is not enough to justify you not taking a quarterback when you got the opportunity to do it. It's a cold world. It's not their fault. And I hope they get their opportunity somewhere else and they prove to be good quarterbacks. But it's just the way that the chips have fallen this year. You get an opportunity to take a quarterback in the top 5, you got to do it. Doesn't mean that's the only thing you do. If we keep Stefanski and only get quarterback and draft a bunch of defensive players in the draft and don't sign any wide receivers in the offseason, we're going to feel like this again offensively. It's multiple things that need to be addressed this offseason. The Browns have the resources to do it this offseason. They're going to have cap space for the first time in a little while, and they're going to have draft picks. So they can address these problems. It is addressable, but they got to actually do it. They can't half-ass hem-haw and say, it's just the quarterback. Let's fix the quarterback. No, it's everything. It's how this offense has been structured since 2024. You got to figure out if Kevin Stefanski's head's still in this, if his heart's still in this, because I watched him and feel like I'm watching a coach who's burnt out. You look at the wide receiver room and you ask yourself, why have we not been able to develop any of the talent in wide receiver that we've drafted? Why is all of our wide receiver drafted talent so bad? Is that just on the evaluation, or are we not developing them? You got to look at the offensive line. Why haven't we been able to draft one replacement on offensive line? The whole operation on offense has to be looked at. And look, I know some people are going to ask, what about Andrew Berry? Do you fire Andrew Berry? If I thought that firing Andrew Berry would stop Jimmy Haslam from being in charge of like a coaching search, I might be more open to it. But the fact is that Andrew Berry is the only thing stopping the Browns from having Jimmy Haslam make personnel decisions again. And that's just a world I can't live in again. I've seen the Jimmy Haslam personnel decisions. They're awful. Before I continue on, I want to thank my sponsor for today, Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code WORSTTAKE. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
So that's where the Browns are offensively. The good news is, boy, do you got a defense. This defense is very good. Very, very, very good. I think I'm at the point I don't care what you do on the offensive side of the ball, who you hire, they got to keep Jim Schwartz. We got to keep that continuity here. You know, also another thing saving the front office is this. The best things about the team are directly linked to the front office. The Browns have used 8 top 2-round draft picks, so 8 picks in the top 2 rounds. They have spent 2 of those picks on offense, 6 of those picks on defense. They have spent more assets on defense in the draft, and the defense is very, very good. The players who are good on defense are the defensive players who have been drafted or signed as UDFAs recently. The players on offense who are good are also the younger players on offense. Look, I think you can make a lot of very cogent arguments about why the offense has not been good and Kevin needs to be fired. I don't think there's the same amount of arguments that exist for Andrew Berry not being good at his job. I think there's more arguments that exist at this point that Andrew Berry is good at his job. It doesn't feel like it right now because the team stinks, but if you look at the draft picks, where they focus those draft picks, look at that defense. Look how fucking good that defense is. Look at how they just dragged in there and fought like hell when they're 2-7 right now and have no reason to fight like that. You know, that's where the draft picks have been. Also, Andrew Berry was critical in the hiring of Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator. Remember, Andrew Berry was the one who had the relationship with them in Philadelphia back where they both got started. Well, back where Andrew got started. So I think you keep Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator. I see no reason to make him your head coach. He's not a good head coach. We've seen Jim Schwartz as a head coach, but you definitely need to keep Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator. He has done a great job getting these guys ready every week. Myles Garrett, it's a damn shame that this season is happening for a 2-win team right now for Myles. He's playing the best football that you have ever seen a defensive player play. Multiple 4+ sack games in a season. I don't know how many times it's been done, but it can't be common. It can't be common. Myles Garrett is on pace to obliterate the sack record, potentially. He's all on pace to have more sacks already than he had last year. I mean, Myles Garrett, freak of nature. I thought Mike Hall, your second round pick from 2024, was excellent in this game. Mason Graham was excellent in this game. Carson Schlesinger was excellent in this game. I think the problem with the Browns defense, though, they're asked to go out there too many times with no support from the offense. Hell, the Browns put up 7 of the points for the offense today. This team can have a future. It does not feel like it right now because what we're watching is dreadful. But this team can have a future. They made Lamar Jackson, who's a perennial MVP candidate, look terrible today. They put Lamar Jackson in a situation defensively to where Lamar had a worse quarterback rating than Dylan Gabriel. That's what this defense is capable of. They evened the table. The Browns got nothing from quarterback all day today. And the Browns defense was so good that they leveled that table. Right? The fact that the Ravens came into here with a lopsided advantage at quarterback, the defense pulled that advantage all the way down to even. Browns could have won this game. This team has a path to be good again soon. But they got to be serious about putting the wrecking ball to the offense. They got to be serious about it, right? It's time to Miley Cyrus this bad boy. I know that's an old-ass reference, but it's time. We need to put the wrecking ball, right? We get the right pieces in place on the offensive line at wide receiver. We get a quarterback with a clean slate that nobody has all these feelings about, that we can all just get behind. And because he's a top pick, maybe he has the ceiling to be a franchise guy. Put us on a similar level with the teams that have quarterbacks in this division. Finally solve that problem. Maybe we could be something. But we're not going to be something if we keep going with incrementalism on offense. We're not going to be anything next year if we just make slight changes, tiny adjustments. If we still are running out the same damn offensive line, and the same head coach, and the same philosophy, and the same scouts on offense, and the same position coaches, we're not going to change much. We need to put the wrecking ball to the offense. We don't need to break what's not broken with the defense, but we need to put the wrecking ball to the offense. If this game wasn't proof of that, I don't know what will be. Here's what else I want to say. It's tough, and this has been tough for me because everybody's expecting me to lambast the starting quarterback at the Cleveland Browns regardless of who they are. And that's tough for me because I know enough to know that they're not the only problem right now. So if you're expecting me, if you've been one of those people who've been mad at me because I haven't been putting all of this on Dylan Gabriel and haven't been shitting on him nonstop because he's not been good in the offense that hasn't produced good results at quarterback position since 2023, and you're looking at me to do that to Shedeur, to shit on Shedeur and trash him because he didn't look good in an offense that hasn't produced good results, you're just not going to get that. I'm not here to shit on whoever the quarterback is. I'm not here to do a victory lap on a player that plays for the Cleveland Browns when I want the Browns to win. Even if I'm just trying to victory lap on the fans of a certain player, I'm not interested in doing that. And the reason I'm not interested in doing that is because I don't want to win arguments online. I want the Browns to solve their problems. And making this all about Shedeur or Dylan, it doesn't get the Browns closer to solving their problem. Because the problem is just bigger than a third-round pick. The problem is just bigger than a fifth-round pick. The problem is bigger than that. And it was always going to be bigger than those guys could solve. Again, 7 quarterbacks in the NFL, I think, could solve these problems on offense for the Browns. And that's not a cop-out. That's not caping for whoever the starter is. That's just the reality of the Browns quarterback situation. I've been saying this for weeks. Nobody's been willing to listen. Hopefully more people are willing to listen now that it benefits them. but that's where it is. I feel bad for Shedeur because I think a lot of hype got thrown out there for Shedeur Sanders that he didn't necessarily put out, and that now people are expecting him to live up to. I think a lot of folks in the media took advantage of people who don't watch football every day, who aren't into football spaces every day, but got captured by the Shedeur story during the draft and wanted to see Shedeur win and got attached to that story and started selling them bullshit about how he could walk in there and beat Joe Montana day one. They got sold sugar pills by snake oil salesmen, and now the expectations for him when he stepped in were just way too high. I have been fighting against this since he's been drafted here. Unfortunately, people decide to go with the hype. That's just what it is. I hope people can understand and reset their expectations now. He was never going to come in here and look like Joe Montana day one. I've always felt like Shedeur was the type of quarterback that needs a couple of years to get to where he could be. That he was always going to take time to develop because he wasn't somebody who was going to overwhelm you with his physical talent at the quarterback position. He was somebody who needed to get to a place to where he gets enough reps in the NFL to be able to outthink you and beat you to different spots. I know people are like, let's give him a week of reps and let's see if it looks different next week. That to me is like putting an unfair expectation on him. It's not going to look that different from what the Browns offense has looked more than likely. Maybe it looks a little bit better here. Maybe it looks a little bit worse here. But the expectation that he comes out there and he's Andrew Luck, he's Joe Burrow. I saw a football game plan on CBS Sports talk about how Shedeur is going to beat the Buffalo Bills and get the Browns to the playoffs. We've lost the plot. I hope we can reset expectations because in reality, if Shedeur gets this offense from 32 to 28th, that's a win. That's a huge win for Shedeur Sanders. It's not glamorous. It's not going to lead Sports Center. It's not going to be sexy, but it would be a huge win. It would be much better than any other quarterback had produced for this offense and a reason to keep Shedeur on the roster next year. Got to give things time. Can't rush stuff. And if we couldn't remember it for Shedeur this week, we can remember it for the next quarterback that the Browns take. And maybe this is a lesson we all need to learn about hype. That's my thoughts. I know you guys have your thoughts. I'll let you put them in the comment section down below.